Welcome to H-1B visa strategies for startups and tech companies. It's great to have you here. And we have a lot to cover, and I'm sure a ton of questions. So I will do my best to answer your questions in this time that we have together today. There's lots to talk about, tons of breaking news. And I'm sure everybody just has normal questions about H-1B season as well. So we'll do our best to try to cover everything. Welcome to those of you who have just joined us. We are now getting started with H-1B visa strategies for startups and tech companies. So I am a lawyer. So what do? We have disclaimers. Here is my lawyer disclaimer. This presentation is an educational service by Alcorn Immigration Law. All information discussed should not be construed as legal advice for any specific action and is an overview only. So please do be sure to consult a knowledgeable professional for assistance with your particular issue. And you will see the QR codes on these slides. That is a link to book a consultation with me at Alcorn Immigration Law and have personal, confidential legal advice in a private setting. So that is available for you. So at Alcorn, our mission is to overcome borders, expand opportunity, and connect the world by practicing compassionate, creative, and cutting-edge immigration law in service of the betterment of humanity. And I just got a great question in the chat window, so let me tell you a little bit about this webinar before we dive in. Here is what we are going to do today. I have about 10 to 15 slides that I'm going to go through with everybody. I'm going to try to make them quick because we have record turnout and I want to primarily focus on answering any questions that you have. This webinar is being recorded and we typically do share the recording with any registrants, usually within a couple days after the webinar. In that follow-up email, you will also get the information to schedule a consultation, as well as additional resources that we offer at Alcorn Immigration Law. So hopefully that takes care of that. And then for any questions you do have, I do prefer if you can please put them in the Q&A panel rather than the webinar chat, as that will help me make sure that I get to answer as many as possible. I do love answering lots of questions quickly. I feel like I'm on a game show. It's very exciting. But I know that you all would love if I could spend more time answering your questions more thoroughly. So in order to help me get a gauge of your interest level and the types of questions you have and what I should emphasize on my slides, if you can start typing your questions into the Q&A panel now, that would be great. I typically answer them in order, and you should have an option to list your name as anonymous. So please do keep that in mind, especially if you're sharing any potentially sensitive data. So lots of stuff going on. I'm trying to stay ahead of everything President Trump is saying about immigration and doing. And so to the extent I can, I'll be happy to comment on any recent events. But from what we can see for now, at least, this H-1B season should go according to plan. And President Trump said last night that he likes competent people. Maybe they need to train Americans on how to do so that Americans can do similar jobs, TBD. But in general, there's like a pro H-1B stance that has been emerging, which is very exciting because that's a remarkable difference from the Trump 1.0 administration. But I started this law firm in 9.5 years ago in my kitchen, just before President Trump, just in that election, in the beginning of that election cycle. And I thought I was going to have a very different law firm. I thought I would have a small law firm that was cozy and local and easy, but I didn't know what those 4 years of that administration would do to forge us as expert business immigration lawyers. And it's also led to the development of our mission at Alcorn Immigration Law, which is truly, and I'll say it again here, to overcome borders, expand opportunity, and connect the world by practicing compassionate, creative, and cutting-edge immigration law in service of the betterment of humanity. So we were forced to be creative. We were forced to come up with innovative, brilliant new immigration strategies that have helped hundreds, if not thousands of people, and probably the trickle effect of tens of thousands or maybe even hundreds of thousands of people around the world. I had that TechCrunch column for 4 years. That made a major impact. And, I am doing this sincerely to try to make the world a better place. This is me. You can listen to my podcast, the Sophie Alcorn podcast, on Apple and Spotify. All of my hundreds of TechCrunch columns are available for free on my website. And a little bit about why I do this. I'm a mom. My dad was an immigration lawyer. I have this picture on my desk of him at my Stanford graduation. So he was the first person in our family to go to college, and he became an immigration lawyer in Southern California starting in the 1980s. My mom is an immigrant from Germany. I used to go to my dad's office when I was a little kid and push the buttons to send faxes to the Immigration and Naturalization Service, the INS, in the 90s. My dad would give me the only food in his office as a reward, a sugar cube. So I've had this Pavlovian association with immigration law my whole life, where I really love doing it. I love helping people. And as I mentioned, I'm a mom, I'm a meditator, and I just believe that we're all connected on planet Earth, and we need to make this world a better place. And I know that if I can do my small part to help people have the freedom and security to be in the place where they can thrive and be in their flow state, and come up with new businesses and amazing, wonderful inventions and life-saving cures, that's something I can do to help humanity advance forward. So I'm really passionate about the work that we do here. My team is growing. We have a Houston office. I'm at our Palo Alto office. So that's been an exciting development in recent months, to emerge from fully remote work back into hybrid, which is great, as all of our clients are coming back to the office as well. So having those in-person work visas is really, really important for people. But we're hiring. So if you know any amazing business immigration lawyers in the San Francisco Bay Area, or any paralegals in the Houston, Texas area, now is the time to let me know. We have a variety of openings, which is exciting. Okay, so I already see the questions coming, which is fabulous. And I should be able to answer all of these so far. I'm going to go through my slides here for another 10 to 15 minutes, and then we're going to pivot to your questions, and I can talk about other topics that come to mind related to your questions as well. But one of the first things I want to do is just point out how essential the H-1B visa process is to American innovation. Jerry Yang from Yahoo, Eric Yuan from Zoom, Elon Musk, you've heard of him. He has an important role right now, obviously. These are just a few of the myriad immigrants who have founded billion-dollar companies. Indeed, over 50% of the unicorn startups in the United States have at least one immigrant founder. And the contributions of immigrants to our modern tech ecosystem are astounding. I think something like two-thirds or three-quarters of the authors of the Transformer paper from Google were originally born in other countries. So it's really important. I believe it's very important for the US to continue to be this beacon of light and hope and freedom, and to attract the world's most brilliant people to come here and innovate on our shores. So the H-1B is definitely a part of that, catalyzing US innovation and our global technology leadership. Having high-skilled immigration boosts overall innovation in the United States. It has absolutely helped create this new wave of artificial intelligence with generative AI and LLMs. And immigration also helps fuel our advancement for AI. We just have all read about Stargate as well, which is going to be a major AI initiative that's going to be critical to the United States' future. And so all of these investments in infrastructure, or even the CHIPS and Science Act and semiconductors, these growing demands for specialists in our economy, especially bringing manufacturing back to the US, are absolutely going to require the H-1B and other critical immigration pathways. And also, if there's tariffs, that is probably going to be a driver for companies to figure out how they can produce and sell locally in the United States, which might mean that some of their specialists from their foreign offices might be more efficient for those individuals to relocate to the United States. So when we have high-skilled immigration, there's this opportunity multiplication that happens. We facilitate knowledge transfer. We help birth new startups. We continue to grow the ecosystem with this virtual flywheel of attracting and encouraging international students to learn and work in the United States. And it's absolutely a catalyst for economic growth. Not only the innovations and the advancements at the companies where H-1B holders can work at, but also, it's generally good for the economy because there's more people with more spending power and more people paying taxes in the United States. So the H-1B has a long history. Created in 1952 in one of the OG Immigration and Nationality Acts, it prioritized immigrants based on their economic contributions and their expertise. And that's where we got the H-1 visa. There's an H-2 visa, the E visa for trade, and the F-1 visa for students. And so this immigration law really took the US towards a skills and education focus, and it created the framework for today's employment-based immigration laws, opening up new talent pathways for people to come here based on their work, their education, and their skills, so that we could start to attract, we didn't call it STEM then, but essentially, attracting global experts to come here and do business and help move the economy forward. Now, the Immigration Act of 1990 was another law that definitely transformed the visa immigration landscape. That is the source of this annual cap of 65,000 visas, as well as the genesis of where we got the O visa from. And a lot of you probably are familiar with that, for extraordinary ability and exceptional ability in the arts. And the P visa, which I don't normally talk about because we do tech, but that's for people in sports. Although I did get expert video game champions P visas at one point, which was definitely a fun thing to work on. But the whole underlying, and since then we've had the modification, right? So now there's 65,000 H-1Bs available every government fiscal year in the annual lottery, which is about to occur in March and April. And at Alcorn, we are accepting clients now for H-1B lottery registration. There's an additional 20,000 set aside of visas that are also lottery-based, but are specifically for people who got advanced degrees from the United States. So that includes master's degrees and PhDs from US colleges and universities. It's not STEM specifically focused, so like a lawyer could get one of those as well. And they rejiggered the formula a few years ago, partly with the introduction of the electronic H-1B selection process. But essentially, people who got, let's just say you got a STEM master's in the United States, you would get 2 bites of the apple for being chosen in the H-1B lottery, so you have a higher chance than everybody else. And the lottery happens by the end of March, so we know by April who got selected, and then we have 90 days to help the company put the person into the lottery after that. So this underlying philosophy, we want to have controlled pathways for international expertise. We want more structured immigration management. We want to prioritize quality and strategic value, and we want a systematized approach. And so this really shifted the paradigm from people coming on ships to Ellis Island, which was more like an 1800s thing, an early 1900s thing, into our modern immigration system of the alphabet soup of visas, quotas, lotteries. So all of this has been around for quite some time. We did actually have a boost to the H-1B program. This is something I remember from when I was a kid, but for Y2K, they were worried that we wouldn't have enough software engineers to deal with the Y2K, date bug thing that had to be fixed. So there was like a surge of H-1Bs that was approved by Congress for a talent shortage at that time, but it ultimately lapsed and was not renewed. But who knows what we're going to see? I mean, it's a very, very exciting time. I can tell you that, to be an immigration lawyer and to be involved in high-skilled immigration. So one thing that I'm watching extremely closely, and I have not seen anything yet canceling this, is the H-1B Modernization Rule, which came out on December 18th, I believe, 2024, as a Biden administration thing. And they went through about a year or more of notice and comment period, getting thousands of comments. The final rule is like 400 pages of double-spaced text, and it itemizes all of the categories of comments that the government received. They did a very, very thorough job of creating this H-1B modernization rule because they don't want it to be overturned in this administration. And a regulation is different from an executive order. So an executive order or a proclamation, that's something President Trump is doing with his Sharpie at his desk with, the stroke of a pen, executive order, I'm the president, I get to decide this. Presidents can do that for certain things, but not for all things. There's another body of administrative law called regulations, which are promulgated through the departments. They've put a hold on any new regulations, and DOGE is trying to identify regulations and spending to cut. But the H-1B modernization rule made it through the entire regulatory process and became final last week. January 17th was the active date of the H-1B modernization rule. So theoretically, we're still in the land where the H-1B modernization rule is the law. It can't be canceled by an executive order. It could potentially be canceled by the Congressional Review Act if Congress votes to get rid of it, but they probably wouldn't do that because then it would be really hard to create any new immigration regulations. And the H-1B modernization rule has a bunch of stuff in it for employer compliance and site visits and reducing fraud. So, okay, that's all the preamble. I think the H-1B modernization rule is going to stick, but what is it? So it redefined specialty occupation, which is a major change. It eliminated the employer-employee relationship requirement, another major change. It also extended validity periods and created flexible start dates. Specifically, the start date will always be like, basically, if the government takes a long time to decide your case, you're not going to be penalized by getting a start date that was like 9 months ago. You'll get like a more recent start date to have more of your time ahead of you. So that's a really good thing. They're also extending the window for cap gap so that if more employers don't want to pay for premium processing, but their lottery-based cases are still pending for their employees after the start of the government fiscal year on October 1st, those international students who would then be stuck in the United States don't have to stop working immediately as they have had to in the past, where cap gap ends and they have to go on a leave of absence, but they're stuck in the United States. So there's going to be a longer time period, I think, till next April, so that those international students are able to just keep working until their H-1B is approved. And that's also really good if there's going to be multiple H-1B lotteries, as there sometimes are. It's been different every year, but some years there's been one H-1B lottery in March and that's it. And other years it's like, okay, June is done. We send in all the cases. They don't have enough. July, there's another lottery. We even had one year with like March, July, September and October lotteries. There were like 4 one year. So that's not usual, but that sometimes happens. There's a big change. There's a big change for startup founders as well, which we're very closely tracking, but I think we're just going to have to stick with this. It's a little bit unfortunate. I wrote in some comments stating this would not be cool, but on that one, they didn't listen to me. They made it so that if you own at least 50% of a company, the really good thing is it's like super clear that you're totally allowed to get an H-1B to work at that company now. And we've been doing, this is based on litigation, not statute or regulation. So it's like the law that's been in place for some time. And you've probably seen on social media, we've gotten several H-1Bs approved. I mean, we just got another one approved last week for somebody who owns 100% of their company. So it's not like new, it's just that lawyers are slow to innovate and take risks. And so I mean, we can't, it's your life, right? So it has to be your best option. You have to agree to try the test with us. So it's slow. We're slow to innovate in law. But anyway, we've had lots of success getting H-1Bs approved for 100% owners, but there's a new I-129 form that we have to use, and it asks a question based on the H-1B Modernization Rule, which is, does this person own at least 50% of the company or have control of the company? And if the answer is yes, then we're only allowed to request a 18-month initial H-1B and an 18-month extension. But then after that, we're able to get 3-year H-1Bs. So typically an H-1B is 3-year increments up to 6 years with longer extensions based on having a perm filed or an I-140 approved. But for startup founders now, it's going to be 18 months, 18 months, 3 years, 3 years, 3 years, assuming you can qualify for the extensions. The other really cool thing that they did, which I think was something I talked to the administration about early on in the last term, was like if you are getting an H-1B as a software engineer, but you're the CEO of your company, are you allowed to do any sort of administrative tasks, like call your CPA, approve the marketing materials, talk to the VCs? Like, are you allowed to do that? Because it's not technically that you are writing code. But now it's overtly acceptable that if you are a founder, you can spend no more than 50% of your time doing other duties related to the administration of your company. So that's excellent, just to have that clear. It's a massive rule. There's a variety of other changes, but those are the highlights that I wanted to cover. But hopefully overall, the 2 main trends for this are easier and faster to get approvals, a new form that will make things simpler, hopefully, more government oversight with company site visits. So that means it's like even more important to make sure that you have the public access folder based on the labor condition application with all the supporting documents. And like, we give you the documents that you need, but you have to maintain them like at the front desk of your company. So just being prepared if anybody visits, so that the person who's there can know knows your company exists, knows that you have an office. If you get a WeWork, fun fact, if you lease a WeWork for your H-1B, like, visit it, meet the people, get the keys, put your stuff in the office. If you don't, that can lead to visa problems if anybody's looking at your case later on. So lots of things there. The other thing that I'm tracking that's also very exciting is increased opportunities for CAP exempt H-1Bs by changing the definition of which organizations can qualify to get H-1Bs without the lottery. So I'm working on a couple things, but what I can say for now is the definition changed. And so now any private employer where the employee is going to spend at least 50% of their time at a qualifying nonprofit, such as a university, even if that's remote work, theoretically, that private for-profit employer would not have to put their employee through the lottery anymore. So I'm open to chatting privately about that and seeing if it might be an option for your company. What do we need? What do we need to think about beyond the H-1B, just in closing on these remarks, and then we'll get to all the amazing questions that I see coming in. Okay, so the H-1B is one pathway. It's great. The lottery is there, which is less great, but it's just been a fact of life forever. The H-1B also has this disadvantage for small companies that you have to pay the prevailing wage, which can be higher than some employers wanted to pay. But also, please keep in mind that full-time work is not required, even part-time work is okay. But generally, that has made it easier for funded startups to get H-1Bs than bootstrap startups, but it's still possible for bootstrap startups. But there are other, tech visas that we look at when we're considering if somebody should get an H-1B. I mentioned the cap exempt option without the lottery to have a start date at any time of year, not just the March lottery with the October 1st date. The O1 is a very, very popular visa that we're getting consistently for people in technology. Even for people who want to have a variety of streams of incomes. The O1 has been very, very successful for that. And a lot of employers are getting O1s for their employees as well, if they qualify. It's not as fast as an H-1B, but it provides a more direct pathway to the fastest type of green card, which is an EB-1A. The market is shifting, which is very exciting, right? For people doing business, creating companies, selling products, raising money for startups, considering going for to be acquired or to have an IPO. So that buzz and that energy is great. It means that we're back to another type of immigration and economic climate for employers. Over the last few years, we've had to deal with a lot of layoffs. Employers, how do you mitigate your risk? How do you tell your teams? How do you help people try to find other options to stay beyond your company? What do we do with the 60-day grace period? Can people find new jobs in time? We were in that reality for many years. When the market is hot and talent is hard to get, immigration becomes a tool that employers use more frequently, and they can also use it to attract, recruit, and retain top global talent. So if you're on this webinar because you're focusing on growing a company as CEO or human resources, or you're a manager of a team, and you want options to recruit people, just know that if you're willing to sponsor people for immigration, you will stand out ahead of so many other employers who don't even offer it as an option. As I mentioned, I'm doing hiring, and I've had some candidates on H-1B ask me if we do H-1B sponsorship. And I was like, of course we do. But I had to laugh. I was taken aback that it's even a question, but it just tells me what the market is like, that even it can be so hard for people to find jobs that are willing to sponsor them, that offering that is a tremendous, tremendous advantage to employers. Okay, so as we move forward, just some general tips. Things are going to keep changing. Stay tuned for more details. I'm doing my best to help our clients get enough sleep, run my company, and research whatever the administration is doing every single day. But I think we can anticipate many more policy changes, at least for the first 100 days of this administration, maybe even longer. I think that number one priority for this administration is immigration enforcement. So we're going to see a lot of that in the news in the coming weeks. From there, I think there's this internal debate within the Republican Party about populism versus I don't know what you would call it, maybe libertarianism / recruiting and attracting the world's best talent. I think there's going to have to be some sort of I don't know. We're going to have to see how that plays out, but I'm very hopeful. I'm actually, for high skilled and STEM immigration and startup immigration and founder immigration, I'm actually more hopeful now than I've pretty much ever been in my whole life about the prospects for immigration reform that would help high skilled talent in a positive way to help business and to help innovation in our country. I think there's the right combination people in Washington now who might be immigrants who happen to care a lot about this, who are also working on things like AI, which are critical to our national security and our country's future and our world's future. So I think it's a great time to be looking at business immigration. And as your companies grow, do leverage immigration as a competitive advantage. And you can create these amazing long-term international recruitment pipelines for new talent. Like if you really want AI talent coming out of Cambridge, or you really like the Australian engineers with such and such degree from this XYZ university. There's a lot of specific immigration pathways for people from different countries that you can leverage in addition to the H-1B to recruit people. Okay, so immediate steps is if you want to help people, if you want to put your candidates into the H-1B lottery, you should contact us now. If you need to transfer an H-1B or something, you can contact us at any time. And our rates will go up for H-1B cap registration March 1st. So, but really the time to contact us is now, because I think that demand will, I'm hiring because I anticipate that demand will increase. So we might have to cut off the number of clients we can accept this year, depending on how that goes, because we need to be able to support everybody who's hired us. So just keep that in mind. If you want to put people in the H-1B, now is definitely the time to reach out to Alcorn. Other things that we offer, I made my online class, Alcorn Academy, free for the world. So anybody can benefit from that right now. I charged $1,000 for it for many, many years, but decided that I was going to do that as a holiday gift. I just wanted more people to be able to benefit from it. So I'm going to put that link in the chat window right now for everybody. So there is, and we'll send an email out as well, but there's Alcorn Academy. If you don't want an H-1B, but you want to figure out how qualified you are for an O-1A, EB-1A green card, or EB-2 NIW green card, reach out, schedule a consultation. But if you're pretty sure you're not qualified yet, but you want handholding to get qualified, and you want like an evaluation of your documents and a personalized checklist, we offer our legal launch program. That's on our website as well, but you can just reach out and ask my team. But we do a variety of immigration solutions. We're just problem solvers, and immigration is the tools in our tool belt. So we'll help figure out whatever you need to get you to your goal. Okay. When you reach out for a consultation, you'll be given our questionnaire. Please fill it out completely. You'll have to check a bunch of boxes, but this is critical to helping my team and I evaluate how we can best help you. Okay, and now we're going to go to the Q&A. But I do want to share our contact information. The QR code is probably the easiest for you, but we have a ton of resources. I've worked really hard on creating the alcorn.law website to be super comprehensive. So there's a lot of materials on there that are educational, that you can benefit from, all the articles, all the podcasts, tons of additional handouts and resources. And now we're going to go to the questions. But I'll leave up this screen while we do that. Okay, so I'm going to be going through the Q&A panel first. And then if I have time, I'll try to get to anything in the chat, but I do prefer questions in the Q&A panel, please. All right, so do we expect any changes in the fiscal year lottery selection process? Excellent question. Background, in Trump 1.0, they tried to change the H-1B lottery system to make it pay to play with an allocation based on wage band, focusing on highest salary to lowest salary. So basically just Excel of everybody's wages and sort Z to A and give the top people the H-1Bs first. That regulation died out in the Biden administration. It could come back, but there isn't enough time for that to become the law by March of 2025 for fiscal year 2026, because the H-1B seasons always start with October 1st, which is government fiscal year 2026. So that could happen, but not this year, I think. And if it happens, it's possible it can come back, but it would be more likely to happen next year instead of this year. Okay. Somebody heard that Trump revoked the H-1B changes effective 1/8. Is that true? Or on 1/18? It might be. I've been doing my research to try to figure out what's been going on. I have not seen that yet. If you have that article and like to send it to me, I'm happy to take a look. I don't believe that would be legal. So, but maybe I missed how they did it, but I'm happy to take a deeper look. What is the optimal time to raise the H-1B request for people on their F1 OPT visa with the 2-year STEM extension? Should this be raised in the first year of OPT, considering to maximize the chances of H-1B, or does it mean one would be wasting the 3 years of visa period for the F1 OPT that STEM offers? I've seen different employers go different ways on this over the years. I believe that you should do the H-1B lottery. Look, I will make money if you put your candidate in the H-1B lottery 4 times, but I think it's in your candidate's best interest to have a chance before they graduate, in their first year of regular OPT, and in both years of STEM OPT, for a total of 4 chances. So I would say do it every year until they get selected. There is a way that you can activate the H-1B through consular processing and not have them travel and get a visa and use up their STEM OPT first for activating it. Sometimes employers do something like that for different reasons. I think it's better to just get the H-1B and get it approved and move on with everybody's lives and have that stability, and not to take any risks, but there's a variety of ways to do it. Okay, next, somebody asks, the employer-employee relationship definition has changed for H-1B, but how to transition to the same from STEM OPT, since I do not know if the definition is consistent across all visa types. That's a great point. I haven't solved that problem yet. But I'm happy to take a deeper look for you. I don't think it changed the STEM regulations at all. So it's a legal gray area. We effectively used the H-1B definition of employer-employee relationship before for STEM OPT. We could still use, probably we could make a legal argument that we could use the answer from all the litigation still, but it didn't overtly change STEM OPT yet. What is the H-1B acceptance rate on concurrent H-1B applications for startup and business owners who also want to keep their current full-time tech jobs? We've had a 100% success rate helping multiple founders with that over the years. The real question is there a conflict of interest with your current company? Will they lay claim to any IP that you're building in the startup? Do you have to tell them? Do you want to tell them? When do you have to tell them? Those are the types. But usually if we set it up, we've always gotten it approved. Next person asks, any downside of working on my own startup with the concurrent H-1B? All the reasons I just mentioned. You have to, I mean, first of all, it's a great way to do it. But you will have to pay yourself the prevailing wage through your company. Now your H-1B, assuming the H-1B Modernization Rule remains in effect, you would be limited to an 18-month H-1B for that company. You would need to look at those conflicts of interest and intellectual property considerations. What is the best advice on how to migrate from F1 OPT to an H-1B as a self-employed consultant? Contact us now to help put you in the H-1B lottery this year. If you get selected, great. We can do the H-1B for your self-employment at your consulting company. And if you do not get selected, then we can, and you're running out of F1 OPT, then we can look for alternative cap exempt H-1B options without the lottery. Somebody else is a self-employed consultant under a new H-1B and they want to transition from STEM OPT. I believe that's the same thing I just answered. Thank you. What are the capital requirements for either a full-time or concurrent H-1B for a beneficiary-owned startup? We need to make a good faith effort to be able to show that for the duration of the petition, the company has enough money to pay you the prevailing wage for the number of hours where you're going to be working at that startup. So if we're limited now to an 18-month H-1B and you want to work there 5 hours a week, and you would have to, let's just say you'd have to pay yourself $60 an hour, right? Just do the math, and at most they would ask for that amount of money over the 18 months plus some top up for other expenses, payroll taxes, things like that. But in reality, we've never had USCIS dissect an H-1B like that. We often have helped founders for full-time jobs with 100K in the bank account, for part-time jobs, even less. And if it's already a business that simply makes money because it has clients, we don't need some lump of money from a venture capital or angel investor sitting in the bank account. We can just show that the revenue will take care of paying the wages, and that's sufficient. And then the other question here was, any recommendations for increasing the chances for approval? And we have a very detailed checklist of documents that we recommend to help our clients ensure they're compliant and that they have everything they'll need based on all the RFEs, we've seen over the years and perfected that checklist. Okay, next question. I have an H-1B I-140. My initial 6-year period completed in October 2024. I applied for an H-1B extension with my current employer in September 2024 without premium processing. It has been 4 months, but my case hasn't been adjudicated yet. While my petition is pending, I have a $500,000 offer from a new employer. Can I work for the new employer with a receipt notice of an H-1B transfer petition, or do I need to wait months for an approval? I would simply tell your current employer that you want to pay for premium processing yourself on the pending H-1B. That would be the safest thing to do. Get that approval and then have the new company start the new one. Because you don't want your current employer to withdraw the pending H-1B when you give notice. You don't want to have a break in your chain of status. So safest thing, you're allowed to pay for premium processing if your employer refuses, so just get that done. Can I self-sponsor an H-1B visa through my own LLC as a self-employed consultant under the new guidelines? Yes. If so, what are the specific requirements and considerations for establishing the employer-employee relationship, and how do I demonstrate compliance with the H-1B regulations? Well, if you reach out to us, we'll walk you through, like, you need a real company. You need to set that up correctly. We are not corporate lawyers. You need to figure out if you need an LLC or a corporation, if it's going to be in California or New York or Delaware. If it's in Delaware, you got to register. So there's all of this like corporate formation stuff that we can kind of give you sidelines of, like, from an immigration perspective, this is what we like to see, but you need the company, you need the FEIN number, you need the bank account. And sometimes we can work in parallel with that, but we really can't file until all of that is done. And so we'll have a variety of things that we need the company to go through for compliance from an immigration perspective as well. I was told by my company that I will be added for the H-1B, but nothing was asked of me. Am I supposed to submit anything to my company before the H-1B process starts? It's too early right now, but they'll be asking you for your name and your passport details and your birth date and some basic information. What does qualifying for extensions for beneficiary-owned H-1Bs include? Will they be looking at progress or just whether the business can carry the employee's salary, etc.? Nobody's ever done one of these before, but it's really just, can the business carry the employee's salary? It's not like a VC evaluating you to see if you have hockey stick growth or anything. It's just traditional, like, can we approve this H-1B one more time? is it legit enough? So that's, is it a legit company that has the ability, the means to keep you employed? That's all. Somebody else says, we are co-sponsoring an H-1B individual with an education entity that is not subject to a cap. We're interested in terminating the co-sponsorship partnership by applying for the H-1B process as a private employer subject to a cap. We are now on our third lottery selection process where our applicant was not selected. Any recommendations? Is the co-sponsorship hurting our selection, or is it truly a random process? As far as I know, it's truly random. I mean, this question's come up over the years, but I don't have any reason to believe it's not random. What you're doing now is not hurting their selection, but I would encourage you to reach out to me, because depending on how this H-1B modernization rule goes, I may be able to help you find an alternative solution for a cap exempt H-1B under the new H-1B modernization guidance. As a founder, I have an option to apply to E2. Which one is better? Faster, more secure, etc. of a process to go through, H-1B or E2? Okay, so the E2 is for citizens of certain countries, not including India or China, but many other nations. It's a treaty of investment. It really depends. E2 is great because if you're married, your spouse can automatically work and you get 5-year visas, but you can only come in for 2 years at a time. H-1B is great because it's completely untied to ownership. So if you have a startup, I've had founders on E2 who had to scramble because they were about to raise $40 million. Their equity from their country would dilute below the 50% threshold, and it would invalidate all the E2 visas for the company. So they had plenty of money. They would have been better off an O1 or a green card in that situation. For startups, the H-1B probably has a higher prevailing wage, which can be a detriment. And the E2 has the advantage of essential employees from your country being able to come. But I'm happy to talk through your unique situation in a consultation. Does working with schools or research qualify as H-1B cap exempt if you have your own organization? Not as such, but maybe under the new H-1B modernization rule based on the relationship with another type of organization. So that's one of the things I'm testing that you're welcome to contact me about. Could you elaborate on not needing the employer-employee relationship that's part of the new H-1B modernization? They just changed it. They just changed the definition. So now they're not calling it an employer-employee relationship. They're saying it has to be a bona fide job offer at a company. But basically, we need a company, we need a job offer, we need payroll, we need somebody to sign. Theoretically, you could sign your own paperwork now for the H-1B. I haven't tested that yet with any clients yet under this, but theoretically you could. So that's kind of how it changed. It's more of a linguistic distinction and legal distinction. Does the employer need to pay the prevailing wage even though the employer doesn't make any profit at first? Yes. You have to figure out how to do that. So that's why companies fundraise or get loans or but you got to figure it out. You got to pay. In terms of the concurrent H-1B, what will happen if I am laid off by the primary employer? You get to fall back on your second concurrent H-1B that's valid, and you don't go into a 60-day grace period, which I think is wonderful. And I wrote a TechCrunch article once about how the concurrent H-1B could be layoff insurance. So that's another reason to consider it. Can I have my own nonprofit and sponsor myself on a concurrent H-1B under cap exempt? It's not that simple. Probably the setup's not worth it. There's probably more direct ways to do it, but yeah, that's the direction I'm trying to figure out and go in. Yes, just to reiterate, the webinar will be sent to the registrants. Somebody who's a current client, where we're working on your case, thank you, has 100% of their company. They're keeping their current tech job, but they need to have someone that can hire or fire them. CEO, and they can be the manager. but without the need for the employer-employee relationship, can you be the CEO? Yeah, you should just email me and I'll work with my team to make sure that we're doing everything under the best guidance for you. And it's kind of this trade-off of like, how much do we want to push the envelope versus like how safely do we want to do it, which is different in everybody's case, but happy to take a look. Somebody else says, I have an H-1B from one employer. Can I just transfer it to my new company where I will be self-employed? How easy could the transfer be? I am working for the company, but my intent is rather bring them on as a client in my company and do the same thing as I'm working under their payroll. Yeah, we could do that. You should reach out to us. We would be happy to help. Okay. A few more minutes, a few more questions. I will ask for everybody's patience, as I am trying to carve out as much time on my calendar as possible to have consultations. So just know that I'm doing whatever I can to make as many appointments as available as possible. Somebody else asks, I'm currently on my H-1B. Can I start my own company as a single person? Yes. If yes, what is required? You need to figure out how to have a company. Follow-up question, can I start a company and perform market research, and once revenue gets generated, then can I switch to my company as an H-1B visa employee? No, it's a real, we got to protect you from having any unauthorized employment. So the most ideal situation would be you own a company that maybe has employees who are doing market research, who you're paying to help, drive business development, but you're not doing that. And that's especially important after the company is formed. So often we see this with early stage startups where it's like, okay, we have a concept, now we raise money, now we're opening a company, now we're putting the money in the company's bank account, now we're getting the H-1Bs, now we're starting development, like that works. And the other example somebody had of like, I'm employed at my client's company and I want to spin out my own company and then they're going to become my consulting client right away. Like that would be very easy to figure out. It would be better to figure out your revenue source or some capital to pay your wage initially before we file the H-1B. I'm on 60 days grace period of F1 visa. If I start a tech company now, what does the timeline of an application look like, including lottery, if applicable? Upon expiration of the S1 grace period, do I need to leave the US if there's a pending H-1B application? It's very tight. The H-1B lottery is the end of March. It is more than 60 days from now, so there's no way for you to file an H-1B through the lottery within your 60-day grace period. If you do file a pending H-1B before the end of your grace period, you could stay while the H-1B is being adjudicated. But it will be tight because it normally takes us 6 weeks to prepare an H-1B for a brand new company that is already set up because there's so much overhead to take care of. So you might want to consider like another I-20 for another semester somewhere to just give you a little bit more time. What is the minimal business expectation? I have a startup with an American citizen co-founder. It is just the two of us with no revenue yet. Can I use this startup to apply for an H-1B for myself? Yes, if you can figure out a way that the company can pay you the prevailing wage as soon as the H-1B is approved. For site visits, would it be a problem if I'm working remotely but in the same state as my employer? No, you're allowed to work remotely, but now with site visits, they could visit your house. And then if they visit your employer's office, there should be somebody there who knows who you are and who can talk about you and your job and who can show them any paperwork. So you just don't want like nobody there to know about it. What are our options if we're on a 1-year OPT extension and don't get selected for the coming lottery? There's so many. If you're not eligible for STEM OPT, then you should look at cap exempt H-1Bs through a nonprofit or through this new thing that I'm trying to figure out. You can look at the O-1 visa for extraordinary ability. But really, you do need to have some work lined up, and then we can figure things out for you. Are two or more employers allowed to sponsor the same employee? Not anymore. Each person is only allowed to have one chance in the H-1B lottery, so only put yourself in once or else you can be disqualified. What type of business qualifies if the owner wants to self-sponsor? Is there a minimum investment amount or type of business? LLCs count, corporations count. There's no type of business. It could be consulting, it could be a startup, it could be a law firm, it could be a engineering consultancy, it could be IT, it could be retail, but we just need to make sure there's a real company that has money to pay you for a real job that's professional, where they can pay the prevailing wage, which we have to calculate based on the job type and the geography and the level of expertise required for the job. Are two or more employers allowed to sponsor the same employee? Nope. What happens if I get approved for self-employment H-1B under the new rule and is later approved? Would it impact my existing approval or just cause issues for renewals? Yeah, I see we're in such a gray area right now. That's why I'm trying to be cautious about attempting new things right now. I have lots of ideas and lots of hope, but I'm also trying to only test new things if it's absolutely necessary as my client's only option. So once again, consultation. Is there any option for undocumented immigrants to enter the H-1B program? Yes, you do not have to have valid status to enter. One of my clients who's undocumented, we just got him an O1 approval, and the plan is in 2-3 months, he might go back to his home country to get an O visa in his passport, assuming conditions remain okay for that. So we could do the same thing for you if you're a dreamer, if you're on DACA, if you're undocumented, just need to meet the other H-1B requirements. Do we need to have a minimum number of H-1 of employees for the beneficiary-owned startup? No, Alcorn immigration law has successfully gotten H-1Bs approved for the very first employee. Once an RFP that was particularly hilarious was from a company backed by a top VC for a founder, where literally the VC had just wired $10 million to the company's bank account. And USCIS was like, what the heck? This is a real company. And we're like, yes, it's a very real company. It got approved. But that was the first, you don't need that. It was just hilarious. I'm going to try to answer questions for a few more minutes because there's so many. Can I use a nonprofit H-1B in which I work part-time to work full-time for a company? Yeah, sort of. If you have an H-1B at a nonprofit that's part-time, your employer at the company could piggyback on a second concurrent full-time H-1B for the other job, but you need 2 separate H-1Bs for that usually. Is there a possibility to work under cap exempt organization and get an H-1B and then have a concurrent H-1B being self-employed and then leave the nonprofit organization and just work for your company? No, because in this scenario, you would not have gone through the lottery. And the thing with these cap exempt H-1Bs is the cap exempt employment has to run in parallel to any other H-1B. You can't just like get it and then stop it. You have to maintain it the whole time you want to work at the for-profit private employer. What are the latest updates and limitations for H-4 spouses? I don't know. I haven't seen anything yet in the flurry of executive orders related to H-1B. That was something possibly that might come under scrutiny in this administration. However, that is one of those things where there's this like schism in the Republican Party about labor and how we want to approach it. And so I have not seen any H-4 updates yet. What is our pricing regarding the H-1B process? We typically charge about $6,000 for a brand new H-1B at a brand new company when we're doing one H-1B. We have different price points for other variations. And then for the lottery, we charge $2,200 to verify eligibility, ensure compliance, ensure company is set up correctly, get the person into the lottery. And if selected, we fully credit that to the ultimate H-1B price. Is the build fellowship an option if someone isn't selected in their third attempt? Absolutely. Another new one that's similar now is the parachute project. We've worked with both. They both have been successful for our clients. Yes, this recording will be available. Somebody heard that the H-1B lottery is not random. They have certain caps based on where you are from. That is incorrect. The green card is based on country of birth. The H-1B lottery is egalitarian, except for if you have a US master's or PhD, you have a slightly higher chance of being approved. Does the company have to submit someone for the visa every year? No company ever has to petition anybody for immigration. It's fully optional. Usually if you get an H-1B, it's valid for 3 years, and then the company just has to renew it when it's about to expire. For a self-sponsored H-1B visa, can the company be started on other business structures like an S Corp or a C Corp other than an LLC? Yes, but talk to your advisor about which of those, your tax advisor about which of those is correct for you. My new employer has started an H-1B transfer. While reviewing the LCA from my previous employer, I noticed that my pay stubs show I was being paid $1.10 less per hour than what was stated on the LCA. Could this difference as low as $1.10 per hour be a problem, such as receiving an RFE during the transfer? I would still go ahead, but I would ask your new employer to have a delayed start date so that you don't have to give notice to your current employer until you receive this H-1B approval and you're sure it worked. If there's any issues, then this law firm that's helping the new company should take a look at routing you through consulate processing and seeing if that's a better option for you. My partner has an H-1B and her first try for the EB-2 visa failed because the labor test failed. Okay, that's the perm. She's trying for the EB-2 NIW, but most likely will fail. We've seen a lot of RFEs for big companies sponsored EB-2 NIWs, but they just announced new guidance for EB-2, which helps people self-petition, especially people who are in STEM. So it might be, she might have a stronger chance self-petitioning her EB-2 NIW than through the company. This person is on F1 and can probably still get an EB-2 NIW faster because of their profile. Can they get an H4EAD as well as maintain their priority date on their EB-2 NIW? Absolutely, you can have both at the same time. That's totally fine, and we would be happy to evaluate you for an EB-2 NIW. Does it make sense to get a Granada citizenship as an Indian if I missed my H-1B chances and then apply for an E2? How plausible is the course of action provided I'm in the US on the F1? I think it would be more efficient to look at cap exempt H-1B, although certainly I've had some clients that go for Granada citizenship and get an E2, but you have to actually live in Granada to get an E2. You can't just have the passport. So that requires another layer of like, do you have an apartment there? Do you spend time there? So usually the cap exempt H-1B or the O1 is a better option in that situation. When should we reach out to you guys to hire you for H-1B filing? Right now, please. We would love to help you. For potential changes under the new administration, I was under the impression that they added the new wage levels. Did they also institute this new pay to play system? No, it was all talk before. They haven't done it yet. I'm currently unemployed. Can I start my own self-employed company and join on H-1B? Yeah, if your H-1B gets selected through the lottery, or if you figure out how to get a cap exempt H-1B, and we'd be happy to help you with that. How much does it cost for a startup H-1B, and how long do you think it may take? Well, the whole budget all in with government filing fees and premium processing is about $10,000. And usually it's about 8 weeks until the start date, although we try to file in 6 weeks or less. If somebody runs a company in their home country, are they qualified? Yes, and you might also qualify for other visa options like the L1 visa for intercompany transferees. We will be sharing the recording. Is there a minimum requirement for self-employed firms like bank balance, clients, employees, revenue, etc.? Yes, it's subjective. We should have a consultation to figure it out. Which one should I prepare as a new grad on F1 OPT visa, EB, or O1? It depends on how much time you have, how much OPT you have, how soon you want to work, what country you're from, and how qualified you are. So you should reach out for more details. Somebody is asking, to go for a 3-month cooling off period, and they'll take you back on the 91st day. What options does the employer have? I believe you're referring to H-1B employment. There's no benching, so your employer would need to keep you working on something, or you would need to leave the country theoretically. What about doing a part-time master's in CPT to continue working and get 2 more chances to apply to H-1B in the coming 2 years? That's an option a lot of people do if you're okay with going to school and paying tuition. Is the CPT visa transferable? The school has to approve your employment. So the total cost with raising the H-1B with you is $2,200. Yes, for the lottery. Should I ask my employer to contact you? Yes, please. Is there any cost involved? No, that covers the $215 government filing fee. Somebody got fired on an H-1B and then was in their home country for 2 years. Will it affect EB-5 later? No, that should be totally fine, assuming you didn't overstay anything. Oh my gosh. Okay. Okay, last question. Can you take an unpaid vacation outside of the US on STEM OPT or H-1B? It should be fine, but for STEM OPT, I would say like a 2-week vacation would be better than a 1 month. I don't know what Customs and Border Protection is going to act like during this administration. Before, they were kind of intense to people on STEM OPT, so it would be safer to have a shorter vacation. Okay. Thank you guys so much. Amazing questions. Thank you so much for your participation. And I really appreciate it. Let us know whatever we can do to support you. We'll do our best. I would love to help you. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening and staying with me beyond time for 10 extra minutes to the end. I hope it was valuable. And the best compliment would be if you need help, or if you have a friend who needs help, who you could refer to us, or if you want to leave us a review on any, like Google or anything. But just thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. I'm going to do my best to keep the spread of knowledge and information alive so we can support high-skilled immigration and help you all to achieve your dreams. So have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much. Bye.